It's August 13th, 2016. A mysterious Twitter account with the handle as Shadow Brokers sends out a single tweet that will change cybersecurity forever. The message contains links to files that shouldn't exist outside the most secure facilities on Earth. Within hours, cybersecurity experts around the world are staring at their screens in disbelief. Someone has just leaked the National Security Agency's most classified hacking tools to the entire world. The files contain zero-day exploits, sophisticated malware, and cyber weapons that took America's top intelligence operatives years to develop. These aren't just any hacking tools. These are the crown jewels of American cyber warfare, stolen from the NSA's most elite unit and dumped onto the internet for anyone to download. But here's what makes this story truly terrifying. The hackers didn't just steal a few documents. They penetrated the most secure networks in the United States government and walked away with an arsenal of digital weapons that would later bring entire countries to their knees. The group behind this unprecedented breach calls themselves the Shadow Brokers. Their identity remains a mystery to this day. What we do know is that they managed to accomplish something that was supposed to be impossible. They cracked the NSA's top secret servers and exposed America's most guarded cyber secrets. This isn't just another data breach. This is the story of how a shadowy group of hackers pulled off the most devastating intelligence leak in modern history. How their stolen tools would unleash chaos across the globe, and how the very weapons designed to protect America became the instruments of its digital downfall. Before we dive into how this happened, you need to understand what they actually stole. Deep inside the NSA's headquarters at Fort Meade, Maryland, there exists a unit so secretive that most government employees don't even know it exists. It's called the Office of Tailored Access Operations, or TAO for short. TAO is essentially the NSA's elite hacking squad. Picture a room filled with the world's most skilled computer experts working around the clock in rotating shifts. These aren't your typical government bureaucrats. These are digital warriors, the best hackers money can buy, all working for Uncle Sam. The unit operates out of something called the Remote Operations Center, an ultra-modern facility at the heart of NSA headquarters. Over 600 specialists work here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their mission is simple but extraordinary. Break into any computer system anywhere in the world belonging to anyone the US government considers a threat. But TAO doesn't work alone. They have secret partnerships with America's biggest telecommunications companies, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint. These companies don't just cooperate with TAO, they actively help them. They insert vulnerabilities into commercial software, create backdoors in security systems, and provide access to the internet's backbone infrastructure. Think about that for a moment. The very companies that provide your internet service, the software that protects your computer, the networks that carry your data, all of them have been secretly working with the NSA to make their systems easier to hack. TAO's hacking tools are organized under something called the Equation Group. This name isn't random. They earned it because of their obsession with encryption algorithms and their signature use of a specific type of encryption called RC5 throughout their malware. The Equation Group has been active since at least 2001, possibly earlier. For over 2 decades, they've been infiltrating computer systems across the globe. Their malware is so sophisticated that cybersecurity researchers who discovered them called them the most advanced threat we have ever seen. One of their most terrifying capabilities is something called Irate Monk. This tool can infect the firmware of your hard drive. That means even if you completely wipe your computer, reinstall your operating system, format your hard drive, and start fresh, their malware will still be there. It hides in the deepest level of your computer's hardware, surviving everything you throw at it. Irate Monk can infect hard drives from all the major manufacturers: Seagate, Western Digital, Samsung, IBM, Toshiba. Once infected, every time you boot up your computer, their software automatically reinstalls itself. It's like a digital parasite that never dies. For years, the Equation Group operated in complete secrecy. They were ghosts in the machine, invisible to everyone except their targets. Cybersecurity experts would occasionally detect strange anomalies, unexplained intrusions, but they could never trace them back to their source. That invisibility was their greatest strength and ultimately their greatest weakness. Because when the shadow brokers finally breached their systems, they walked away with everything. The first sign something was wrong came in the summer of 2016. The shadow brokers announced their presence with a post written in broken English on a file-sharing site. They claimed to have hacked the Equation Group and stolen their entire arsenal of cyber weapons. Most experts initially dismissed this as a hoax. The idea that someone could penetrate the NSA's most secure system seemed impossible. But then they released a sample of the stolen files as proof. Cybersecurity researchers around the world downloaded the files and began analyzing them. What they found sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. These weren't fake tools or amateur hacking scripts. These were genuine NSA cyber weapons, complete with documentation, installation instructions, and targeting information. The shadow brokers had somehow gained access to a server containing the NSA's most classified hacking tools. But this wasn't just any server. This was a staging area for the Equation Group's operations, containing active exploits and zero-day vulnerabilities that the NSA had been hoarding for years. Zero-day vulnerabilities are software flaws that are unknown to the companies that make the software. They're called 0 days because the software makers have had 0 days to fix them. These vulnerabilities are incredibly valuable because they allow hackers to break into systems without being detected. The NSA had been collecting these 0 days for years, building up an arsenal of secret ways to break into computers, smartphones, and networks around the world. They would discover a vulnerability in Windows or Android or iPhone software, but instead of reporting it to Microsoft, Google, or Apple so it could be fixed, they would keep it secret and weaponize it. This practice is deeply controversial. By hoarding these vulnerabilities instead of helping to fix them, the NSA was essentially leaving millions of innocent people vulnerable to attack. They were prioritizing their ability to spy on others over the security of American citizens and allies. The shadow brokers didn't just steal a few of these tools. They walked away with dozens of zero-day exploits, each one capable of breaking into different types of systems. They had tools for attacking Windows computers, Linux servers, network equipment, and mobile devices. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. The shadow brokers initially tried to auction off the stolen tools to the highest bidder. They wanted 1 million Bitcoin, which at the time was worth around $600 million. They set up a website and invited anyone with enough money to bid on the NSA's cyber weapons. Think about the implications of this for a moment. The most sophisticated hacking tools ever created, developed by the world's most powerful intelligence agency, were being sold to whoever could pay the most. Terrorist organizations, hostile governments, criminal syndicates, anyone with enough cryptocurrency could potentially buy weapons-grade cyber capabilities. The auction format was particularly sinister. Bidders had to send their Bitcoin payments up front with no guarantee of getting their money back if they didn't win. It was like a twisted game show where the prizes were tools of digital destruction. Fortunately, the auction failed. No one was willing to risk hundreds of millions of dollars on an anonymous group's promise to deliver stolen NSA tools. But the shadow brokers weren't done. If they couldn't sell the tools, they would give them away for free. This decision would prove to be one of the most consequential moments in cybersecurity history, because among the tools they were about to release was something called Eternal Blue, an exploit that would soon bring the world to its knees. Eternal Blue was different from every other tool in the shadow broker's arsenal. While most exploits target specific software or individual computers, Eternal Blue could spread like wildfire across entire networks. It exploited a fundamental flaw in how Windows computers communicate with each other, a protocol called server message block that's used for file sharing across networks. The vulnerability was devastating in its simplicity. When a Windows computer received a specially crafted message through this protocol, it would execute whatever code the attacker wanted. No user interaction required, no passwords needed. The computer would simply obey whatever commands it received. But here's what made Eternal Blue truly terrifying. Once it infected one computer on a network, it could automatically jump to every other Windows machine connected to that same network. It was a digital plague that could consume entire organizations in minutes. The NSA had discovered this vulnerability years earlier and decided to keep it secret. They didn't warn Microsoft. They didn't help fix the problem. Instead, they weaponized it for their own operations. For over 5 years, this gaping security hole remained open in millions of computers worldwide because the NSA wanted to preserve their ability to exploit it. This decision would come back to haunt them in ways they never imagined. On April 14, 2017, the shadow brokers released their most devastating leak yet. They called it Lost in Translation, and it contained dozens of NSA hacking tools, including the complete Eternal Blue exploit package. The timing wasn't coincidental. The shadow brokers were angry about President Trump's missile strike on Syria, and they wanted to send a message. The leak was catastrophic. Cybersecurity experts who analyzed the files were stunned by their sophistication and scope. These weren't just hacking tools, they were point-and-click cyber weapons that could turn any amateur into a nation-state level hacker. The package included everything needed to launch devastating attacks. There were exploits for breaking into systems, tools for maintaining persistent access, and command and control software for managing infected networks. It was like someone had dumped the contents of a military armory onto the internet. But the real disaster was still to come. Just weeks after the Eternal Blue leak, someone decided to weaponize it. They took the NSA's stolen exploit and combined it with ransomware, creating a digital monster that would terrorize the world. On May 12, 2017, computers across the globe began displaying a chilling message. Their files had been encrypted and a countdown timer was ticking down. Pay $300 in Bitcoin within 3 days or lose your data forever. This was WannaCry, and it was spreading faster than anyone thought possible. The attack moved like lightning. Within hours, over 230,000 computers in 150 countries were infected. The ransomware was spreading at a rate of 10,000 devices per hour, jumping from network to network using the stolen Eternal Blue exploit. Hospitals were among the hardest hit. In Britain, the National Health Service was brought to its knees. Operating rooms went dark. Medical equipment stopped working. Patients were turned away from emergency rooms. Ambulances were diverted to hospitals that still had functioning computer systems. At one hospital, doctors were forced to use pen and paper to track patients. X-ray machines went offline. Blood test results couldn't be processed. Surgery schedules were thrown into chaos. People's lives hung in the balance because the NSA had kept a security vulnerability secret for years. The economic damage was staggering. FedEx's global shipping network crashed. Deutsche Bahn's train schedules were paralyzed across Germany. Universities, government agencies, and businesses worldwide ground to a halt as their computers were locked up by ransomware built with stolen NSA tools. But WannaCry was just the beginning. 2 months later, another attack struck using the same NSA exploit. This one was called NotPetya, and it was even more destructive than its predecessor. NotPetya didn't just encrypt files and demand ransom. It was designed to destroy data permanently, spreading through networks like a digital wildfire that left nothing but scorched earth in its wake. The attack targeted Ukraine initially, but quickly spread across the globe, causing billions of dollars in damage. Major corporations were devastated. Shipping giant Maersk lost thousands of computers and had to reinstall software on 4,000 servers. Pharmaceutical company Merck saw its vaccine production disrupted for months. FedEx subsidiary TNT Express lost years of customer data and never fully recovered. The irony was inescapable. The NSA had created these weapons to protect America. But when they were stolen and released, they became instruments of chaos that harmed American companies and allies more than any foreign adversary. As the world reeled from these attacks, investigators began piecing together how the shadow brokers had pulled off their unprecedented heist. The answer they uncovered was both simpler and more terrifying than anyone had imagined. The breach didn't require sophisticated hacking techniques or years of planning. It didn't involve breaking through multiple layers of security or exploiting complex vulnerabilities. Instead, it appears to have been an inside job, carried out by someone who already had access to the NSA's most sensitive systems. In August 2016, just days after the first shadow brokers leak, FBI agents surrounded a modest house in Glen Burnie, Maryland. They deployed flashbang grenades, broke down the front door with a battering ram, and arrested a 51-year-old man named Harold Martin. Martin wasn't a master hacker or foreign spy. He was a contractor who had worked for the NSA for over 2 decades, most recently with the elite Tailored Access Operations Unit. He had the highest level security clearances and legitimate access to some of America's most classified cyber weapons. What agents found in Martin's home was staggering. Over 50 terabytes of classified data, equivalent to 500 million pages of documents. Computer hard drives, thumb drives, and storage devices filled with NSA secrets were scattered throughout his house. Some materials dated back 20 years, representing one of the largest intelligence thefts in American history. Martin had been systematically stealing classified information for decades, taking home everything from operational plans to hacking tools to sensitive intelligence reports. He claimed he was just a digital hoarder who liked to read classified documents at home, but investigators suspected something more sinister. The timing of Martin's arrest was too convenient to ignore. The shadow brokers had announced their presence just days earlier, and Martin had been communicating with Russian cybersecurity firms through suspicious social media accounts. But despite extensive investigation, authorities could never definitively link him to the shadow brokers' leak. This created a troubling mystery that persists to this day. If Martin wasn't the source of the shadow brokers' leak, then who was? And how did they gain access to the NSA's most classified systems? The answer may lie in a fundamental flaw in how America's intelligence agencies handle their most sensitive data. Multiple former NSA employees have suggested that the shadow brokers didn't hack into anything at all. Instead, they believe someone with authorized access simply copied the files and walked out the door. The stolen tools were stored on what's called an air-gapped network, completely isolated from the internet. There's no way to hack into these systems remotely because they're not connected to anything. The only way to access them is from the inside, using authorized credentials and physical access to NSA facilities. This means the shadow brokers' breach was likely an act of espionage carried out by someone who worked for the very agency they betrayed. Whether it was a disgruntled employee, a foreign mole, or someone motivated by ideology, we may never know. But the damage they caused will reverberate for decades. The NSA's response to the breach revealed just how devastating the loss really was. Internal documents later showed that the agency was forced to abandon years of intelligence operations. Sources were burned, ongoing missions were compromised, and millions of dollars in development costs were lost overnight. The agency had to assume that every tool in the shadow broker's possession was now known to hostile governments. Sophisticated hacking operations that had taken years to develop were rendered useless in a matter of hours. The NSA's technological advantage, built up over decades, had evaporated, but the consequences extended far beyond the intelligence community. The stolen tools became the foundation for a new generation of cybercriminals and state-sponsored hackers. Countries like North Korea and Russia began incorporating NSA exploits into their own cyber operations, turning America's weapons against its allies and interests. The Eternal Blue exploit in particular became a favorite tool of criminal organizations. Even today, security researchers detect hundreds of thousands of Eternal Blue-based attacks every month. The vulnerability that the NSA kept secret for years continues to haunt the internet, enabling ransomware attacks, data breaches, and digital espionage operations worldwide. Microsoft eventually patched the Eternal Blue vulnerability, but millions of computers remain unprotected because their owners haven't installed the security updates. These machines serve as launching pads for ongoing attacks, creating a permanent reservoir of vulnerable systems that criminals can exploit. The shadow brokers themselves vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared. Their final post suggested they were done leaking NSA tools, but they left behind a transformed cybersecurity landscape. The age of digital innocence was over, replaced by an era where nation-state cyber weapons could end up in anyone's hands. The true identity of the shadow brokers remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in cybersecurity. Some experts believe they were Russian intelligence operatives seeking to embarrass the United States. Others suspect they were motivated by opposition to American foreign policy, particularly military interventions in the Middle East. Edward Snowden himself weighed in on the mystery, suggesting the leak was likely a Russian operation designed to send a message to the US government. The timing certainly supported this theory, coming amid rising tensions over alleged Russian interference in the 2016 election. But regardless of who they were or what motivated them, the shadow brokers achieved something unprecedented. They pulled back the curtain on America's secret cyber warfare program and showed the world just how vulnerable we all are in the digital age. The story of the shadow brokers is ultimately a cautionary tale about the dangers of hoarding security vulnerabilities. By keeping Eternal Blue and other exploits secret, the NSA left millions of innocent people vulnerable to attack. When those weapons were inevitably stolen and released, they caused far more damage to American interests than they ever provided in intelligence value. Today, the debate over how intelligence agencies should handle security vulnerabilities continues. Should they disclose flaws to help protect everyone or keep them secret to maintain their operational capabilities? The shadow brokers leak suggests that secrecy comes with enormous risks that may outweigh any temporary advantages. The hack that exposed the NSA's top-secret servers changed cybersecurity forever. It showed that even the most powerful intelligence agencies are vulnerable to betrayal from within. It demonstrated how quickly classified weapons can spread across the globe once they're released. And it proved that in the digital age, the line between protector and threat can disappear in an instant. The shadow brokers may be gone, but their legacy lives on in every ransomware attack, every data breach, and every cyber operation that uses tools originally developed in the secret corridors of American intelligence. They cracked more than just the NSA's servers. They cracked open the entire foundation of digital security, leaving us all to live with the consequences.